Hello there, Chick Chat. We're back with another story of the week. Hello, Brooke.
Hi.
This is from Confession, which we haven't done one from Confession in a while. We love
Yeah,
a
we
good
do
confession.
sometimes.
Actually, I found this one in a reel, a little snippet of the story, and I was like, I gotta go find it. So I did. And I read through the whole thing. I was like, we gotta do this one. It's from 165 days ago, about 4 or 5 months ago. It's titled, I Stole from a Museum as a Child, and I Don't Mean the Gift Shop.
Oh, got a little update.
Yes. So our theme this week is confessions. Every now and then we get a good one. So it starts, when I was a child, around 7 or 8, I went on a school trip to a museum that had an ancient Egypt exhibit running. The museum staff allowed the class to look at some old relics, passing them around in a circle. I remember looking at this little greeny blue colored figurine of a goddess with a hippo head. I really liked it. Without a second thought, I put it in my pocket and took it home with me. I sat at home playing with it, not really understanding the gravity of what I had done. Then we had a big assembly at school. The museum were looking for this figurine as it was not a replica but an actual ancient Egyptian artifact.
Yikes.
Yeah. I remember playing scenarios in my head of how I could give it back without getting caught, but I couldn't see a way out of it. The museum became angrier, the assemblies grew more pressing, letters went home to all parents. Parents were called in of naughty children who could have possibly done it. They were investigating.
Assemblies, plural.
Multiple assemblies progressively became more pressing.
Is that allowed?
It's
And here threatening children.
I don't think it's a threat. I think they're just trying to get the artifact back. They're probably even saying like, "You won't get in trouble." We just
Progressively more threatening, isn't that what they said?
it's progressively more pressing. Yes,
Pressing is more like they were being urgent, not like they were being scary.
but the museum did become angrier. Was his first line, so they weren't happy.
Fair. They weren't there for a parade.
They were not happy. This museum. So finally everyone calmed down. They realized they weren't getting it back. I got away with it. The problem is I am now 31 and I still have the figurine. I couldn't throw it away. It's thousands of years old. I couldn't give it back. I would have been in unbelievable trouble. If I gave it back now, it would look strange that it's turned up after all this time in the same town by someone who went to the same school. I've never told anyone about this figurine. No one else has ever seen it. I have no idea what I'll ever do with it, but that's my confession. Museum thief of an ancient artifact at 7 years old.
Wow.
An ancient artifact.
I'm trying to think of what I would do if that was me.
I will say that's on the museum. Okay, why are you giving artifacts to children to pass around?
That's true. But I remember being at places, we toured the DNR and stuff, and they would have ancient Native American stuff for us to look at.
Like sparrow arrowheads and fossils.
You know, now that I think about that, I feel like I remember wanting to take some of those things too. I never did, but.
So I was at work the other day. I work at a spa, and this guy mentioned that he worked at a museum. So I brought up a little bit of the story. I didn't read it yet, like the whole thing, but I remembered the clip that I watched that day. So I was bringing it up to him, and he was like, "Were they fossils?" And I was like, "No, they were artifacts, 1,000-year-old artifacts." And he's like, "Well, then that's on the museum because we know better than to give kids actual things worth value." Yeah, because he said where he works, he's got a crap ton of fossils. Sometimes they try to give them away to kids because they just have so many of them. So little things like that.
That makes sense, yeah.
They don't care.
You know, it was probably fossils that I was touching at the DNR museum too.
Who knows? If it's that valuable to where you got to have assembly after assembly.
Mm-hmm. You know, that costs money itself just to be sending out all these emails and.
I don't think that costs much money, but it definitely.
You gotta send your damn museum director over to an elementary school to talk to a bunch of kids.
I do wonder what they were saying to these kids. Obviously, this person was too afraid to come forward and be like, "Oh, I took it. I have Medusa."
I feel like even if they were saying like you won't get in trouble, just give it back. I feel like any kid at that point, you recognize how serious it is. So even if you're not going to get in big trouble, you're going to get in trouble at least with your parents. And that is big trouble at that age.
Yeah. Well, and then after you already said you didn't have it, like, what do you?
Yeah, and then you have a reputation. I mean, this is a big deal, obviously a way bigger deal than you thought it was when you put it in your little pocket. And so I think then you're the kid that stole the thing from the museum until you.
Well, he's not normally a bad. I'm guessing it's a he. I don't know. The poster is not normally a bad kid because they said that the bad kids were being taken to the office to be, or their parents were coming in. So I feel like
that's why I think
them they would have said that.
That's why I think it's even bigger of a deal. If you're a kid who doesn't typically get in trouble and you did something this big of a deal, I wouldn't want anyone thinking that that's my reputation now.
It is a little embarrassing.
I'm trying to think what I would do. I don't know. I mean, at this point, if I have it, okay, if I stole it already and I had it, I think at this point you kind of have to take it to the grave, don't you?
Either that, but like, how do you explain how you have it to who you hand it down to? Like, oh yeah, I just have this ancient Egypt statue as a probably white American child. I'm guessing here, but I could be wrong. That's just who I envision right now. Yeah, I got this in Egypt. How? Yeah. The most logical explanation is I lifted it from a museum when I was a kid. Like, here, you figure out what you want to do with it. You
take it to the pawn shop one day, try your luck.
You can sell it. I wouldn't sell it open. I wouldn't sell it. Actually, that could probably.
I guess. So, I mean, there's two obvious choices, right? Do nothing and hide it forever. Potentially set your child or grandchild up to get in trouble if they ever take it to the pawn shop and try to pawn the stolen item.
Oh yeah.
Or you could take it back to the museum and take responsibility for what you did when you were a child and say, I actually forgot about this for the last like 10 years. And when I had moved recently, I came across it and I was just covered in shame. And so here I am at your mercy with your item. And just pray that they are nice about it.
And hope that as an adult they don't charge you with that.
I feel like, isn't there like a statute of limitations on most crimes?
Hopefully.
It's been at least 20 years.
At least 25 probably, because you gotta think he's 31. Or she, they're 31, so they're about our age, or actually they are our age, because I was probably 31 about 5 months ago. Yeah. So yeah, I was 31 5 months ago, so I'm the same age as Poster, and that would be year 2000, 2001. You know what? Museums were pretty lax back then, I must assume, for them to be.
So for theft charges in Texas, the statute of limitations is 5 years. In California, it's 3. In Michigan, it's 6 to 10.
I guess it depends where they're from, but I'm sure they're past it. But
yeah, so you couldn't even get charged for it. I like that idea, by the way. I'm just going to put that on the record. I like to take it back right now.
Or if you're trying to be anonymous, can't you just maybe go to the museum as a guest and just kind of like leave it somewhere?
Yeah, but that's such a scary way to do it. Because I thought about even maybe mailing it, but
or leaving it in the bathroom.
Yeah, they can always trace. See, what they should have done was leave it in the bathroom back when they were coming to the school 3 decades ago. They should have just left it in the bathroom then. That's what I would have done then if I stole it. Just
wipe your prints off it and set it in the bathroom.
You know, just leave it where an adult can find it.
That literally probably would have been the best idea as a kid. In the bathroom, in a stall. Just go to the bathroom when no one's there.
Honestly, go to the bathroom at the end of the school day and just leave it there either overnight or for the janitor to find in the morning or the nighttime, and nobody's going to know.
Exactly.
It's all done. So that's what I would have done personally if it would have kept getting like that. But I do like the idea of just bringing it back now and kind of saying I forgot about it for a while. And here
I will say maybe a 7-year-old might not think like that, but that's
agreed.
Been the best.
Had like a 4th grade buddy that they could confide in, then maybe the 4th grade buddy could let them know.
There might be a way to do it anonymously. Maybe you could even mail it, but could you mail it under a different name and maybe a P.O. box or something?
See, I feel like all that stuff is generally pretty traceable, but maybe I'm just giving more credit to the post office.
And just leave a letter with it. I did this when I was a kid. I don't want no problems. I came across it.
Maybe, but I feel like if you're going to give it back, you probably should just be honest about it instead of it appearing somewhere in a dishonest way. But that's just my opinion. I would just be eaten alive with anxiety for the next several months at least if I did it any other way, because I'm going to need to know how this is going down. If they could be possibly tracing my address or watching a camera that I just dropped it off somewhere in the museum in, I would be eaten alive with anxiety. But that's just me.
I could see that. I wonder how OP has been able to live the last 25 years. It seems like they've probably thought about this every day for the last 25 years. You have a like thousands of year old thing in your room somewhere.
Imagine
it's always hidden.
Every time someone comes over and they get close to it, the panic. They're gonna find it. Do you think it's in their underwear drawer, or where do you think they keep something so sacred?
I don't know. Let's start maybe pulling up some of these comments. I know OP does have an update edit or whatever, but we'll go to some comments. So the top comment says, I want this to be a movie where the figure has the spirit of an ancient pharaoh that possesses the one who took it, and they have to share a body. Every now and then, Pharaoh gets control of the body and has to adapt to modern society.
Wow, very creative.
Interesting for a top comment.
You can't not like it because it's very creative. But
very creative. It would be a good movie, but I don't know if it's helpful for the story. It seemed like very intrusive thoughts. Okay. All right.
Stream of consciousness.
So here's a comment OP responded to. Comment says, how wouldn't they notice that they didn't get it back after passing it around? I feel like they wouldn't let you leave until they found it. And OP responded, oh, I think this is a girl, actually. It says Hannah Lucy is the name.
Well, those are girl names, typically.
So I'm going to start referring to OP as she possible.
Okay.
As long as it don't offend anybody. We all good? Okay, good.
Prince is okay with it. He's part of the LGBTQ population.
OP responded, you should think so, wouldn't you? But obviously someone wasn't paying enough attention to what came back. They had contacted the school by the next morning, though. True, if they're passing around a bunch of them at one time, maybe been overlooked. There's a bunch of little kids running around. They might have only been like 2 employees there doing this.
I mean, mistakes happen. It's probably typical that they make sure that they have all of their things.
Right. Because this field trip could have been like at the end of the day. So the museum might have closed after the school. The museum might have not have realized it until after the school was closed and there wasn't much that they could do about it. So then they got a hold of who they could and set things up for the morning to interrogate the kiddos.
Can you imagine? I would have been so scared. I guess I'm just a scaredy cat, but I mean, gosh, to go to school the next day and you have all those people right back there looking at you, asking questions about what you may or may not have brought home with you.
This is a highlighted comment. It's quite long, but this is from a museum worker. Hopefully not the same museum. Hey there, I remember you. Especially because it seems like OP used their like full name or something on this. So maybe
if that's their full name, then they can't be trusted because it's 2 first names. So
what could be their name, first and middle?
2 first names.
Yeah, a first and a middle name. Is it your middle name a first name?
Yeah, but I don't know.
Can your middle name also be a first name?
I guess.
So it says museum worker here. Handling collections are actually very common and are very much a mixed bag as far as authenticity goes. Depending on the museum, the type of artifact and resources available, objects in handling collections can genuine, even for archaeology and paleontology replicas, or related to contemporary objects. I can't believe I got that out like that.
Bravo.
Some objects can only be used by staff, volunteers for demonstrations, and other are fully hands-on by visitors. From the description, it sounds like the OP has a Mayans Ushabi figure of Taweret. I do not know how to pronounce any of those words, so I'm so sorry already, YouTubers. Okay, you and the YouTubers feeder.
A lot of people are going to be super offended that you didn't know how to properly pronounce.
I am so sorry. I do not know how to pronounce these words.
I'm just shocked. Is this thing such a big deal that this random museum worker knows that this is a missing artifact? Is that what they're
like knows the exact artifact that it is?
Right.
I don't know.
Okay,
maybe,
tell me more.
Maybe museum workers really are like all knowing of these artifact things. Maybe
they're like the undercover FBI of art.
Maybe they've been doing it for like 30 years. They know their shit.
I'm sure they have. I think museum work is very specific work.
It seems like they have quite the vocabulary as well. Like you gotta be real smart to do this. I'm assuming it's quite small as it can fit in a child's pocket. Well, no shit. Just that they were smart.
This is definitely a museum worker, by the way. Such a know-it-all. Okay, continue, lady.
Quite small.
I'm assuming it's small, and it's the Temba Chalamba of Tokamba.
Continue, but now I'm invested. So
the tears.
There are millions and millions of Ushabis. Ushabis, I think. Ushabitis. Yeah. And many of them are not particularly valuable, usually due to condition. You could buy one from an auction site for under 100 euros easily. You shouldn't, because virtually all antiques are trafficked and originated by questionable methods, but you could.
What a snob.
Well, if that's the normal way it goes, then what's the difference?
Right? They're all that way. And that's just the way they go trafficked.
If they're all trafficked and they're all sitting in a museum, apparently it's not that big of a deal. Charging people to look at them.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay.
So especially large museums like the Met or the British Museum will have thousands upon thousands, perhaps millions of tiny to small objects like this. If you visit the Met, they have thousands of ushabtis, stone amulets, beads, etc., just laid out on shelves inside a close of Egyptian galleries. I can't imagine how many more are in storage. Likewise, the British Museum does indeed use genuine antiques in their handling collections because of the educational value of letting people interact with one random potsherd or amulet is higher than whatever monetary value or cultural value might come back from it, set in a specimen box for 50 years and only checked once in a blue moon at audit.
Person is very dramatic and very, I can't.
50 years old with glasses and a British accent.
A snob.
White hair.
White skin.
To the tip. The museum was unhappy because
There's more? I thought we was finished with that.
the museum was unhappy because we don't like we don't like losing our things. They're meant to be there for everyone to enjoy for as long as possible. And we have legal obligations to look after them. I'd be surprised if
You're making me squeak. I'm surprised.
I'm trying to be the person who wrote this.
It's method acting at its finest. From Dublin to Ireland, Sweden and beyond. That's why I had to get a tissue. We're back.
Even through the whole story. Okay.
Not even through the whole comment.
I'd be surprised if I would definitely be surprised.
Lady, you're torturing me.
Sorry, I'm about to have an aneurysm.
Okay. What would she be surprised about? Tell me.
Not surprised. I'd be surprised if anyone's life was ruined over this. However, especially for a handling object that may not even have been accessible, part of the permanent collection with additional legal responsibilities. For the OP, I would return it. The museum will be grateful, and having been below the legal age of responsibility, I'd be surprised if they were liable for anything. Of course, that depends on the local laws and culture where OP lives. So, yeah.
I thought I just had my serious face back on. I do actually agree with the last part about taking
About
it
what?
back.
Did anything even make sense what that person said? I don't even know.
None of it except for they recommended taking it back because of some kind of responsibility baloney that I've never heard of.
If he doesn't want to keep it, he might as well give it back. I mean, but if you want to keep it, then fuck it.
But what would they do with it?
Well, you were originally saying you can keep it and just hold on to it.
I was, and then I talked through what it'd be like to maybe just bring it over and blame it on being a kid and maybe forgetting. And I liked that idea better. But those are the two options, right? You take it to your grave forever. Or maybe you take it physically to your grave. Maybe we don't even say that as a phrase. Maybe you just get cremated with it.
You could do that. Or you could just hand it down your family tree and just say, this is my beloved. They'll just put it on the mantle or something. I don't know what they'll do with it. Maybe I'll just go in a box somewhere. I feel like you could anonymously somehow give it back, or you could just give it back. I guess you really wouldn't get in trouble. According to this museum lady, he wouldn't get in trouble.
This museum snob, yeah. This person is ridiculous. I do agree with them. They're probably not going to get in trouble. I think there's all kinds of things that would prevent them from getting in trouble.
So somebody said, try to mail it anonymously. Pretty sure they won't be able to trace it back to you as long as there's no personal info anywhere on the package. Edit. Also, pretty stupid decision to hand out real artifacts instead of replicas to kids. I mean, what did they think would happen?
Yeah.
So something of value for sure. But let's see.
I guess I do want to go back to the museum snob for a minute. So did they say that there's like thousands or millions of these types of artifacts, and at the same time talk about how important it is to the museum to have every single one of them forever for everybody? How does that make sense? That there's so many, they're so important.
That's what I'm saying. I don't understand why they even let them loose.
I don't go to museums once a month or anything, but they are one of the things I like to do when I travel. So I've gone to quite a few museums. When I lived in Paris for a week, I went to quite a few museums. And yes, they have a lot of really small artifacts and pieces of things and all kinds of stuff from the great beyond. But I just can't see any of it being that particularly meaningful. And if it was, they wouldn't be passing it out to kids. I mean, they have all of it, yes, on shelves, but they're not just on open shelves for people to touch. They're behind glass that's locked. But yeah, I guess you could mail it back. That's not a bad suggestion, but that would just make me personally anxious. But I think I'm a little more anxious than the general public.
OP is very, very much active on the Reddit, so I gotta really scroll. OP is the most active Reddit user in the world. They did get a lot of comments to mail it back. I don't know what's the deal with mailing it. I guess maybe
people think that that's anonymous, and that's possible. It could be pretty anonymous.
Someone said if it's from the British History Museum, you should send it back to Egypt. And someone said, I'm all for returning it to Egypt.
Yeah. Return to sender.
Go to the motherland and go to Egypt. Maybe go see the pyramids. Get yourself a little vacation. Leave it there.
Leave it in the pyramid. It'll be like a full 360, a full circle of life.
It's like some of those animal movies where you see them escape from the zoo and then they go back to the wilderness. It's kind of like that. It's the zoo for artifacts.
It's like being rehomed to its natural habitat.
Yes. I think it's brilliant.
I'm okay with that one. It's going to cost the OP a little more money than...
But to get a vacation out of it and to see some cool stuff.
Yeah, but they better keep their hands to them damn selves, okay?
True. We don't want history to repeat itself, especially in the land of a lot of history.
Yeah. There's a lot of small artifacts.
Just leave it somewhere in Egypt. You don't even gotta go to the pyramids, just like go to the bathrooms at the pyramids and leave it there.
It'll just be like a permanent decoration. I bet you everyone will think that it's just like decor. One day, a museum owner will come in and be like, that Subit Shabala been missing for 3 decades.
I know where it's from. How did it get all the way back here?
Magic.
So someone said, you'll be a hero if you give it back. And OP responded, you don't think it would be suspicious that I'm giving it back to the closest museum to my old school where I live now? And I went to the school where a kid stole it, and I'm the right age to have been in that class that stole it. Okay.
I think with all those details, you give it back and be honest about that part. But
you're going a little overboard here, but all right, let's see. And the person responded, I was thinking of just marching in and saying I was the one who took this as a child and I was too terrified to return it. And OP said, the last 24 years of anxiety have gone into not doing that exact thing.
I can relate. I feel like this is one of those cases where you're either going to live with 24 more years of anxiety. You're basically being cursed by this Egyptian thing. And if you just bring it back where it belongs, either to Egypt or a museum, the choice is yours. You would feel better.
All right. So someone else said, you can mail it back anonymously. Have you not thought of this before? And OP said, I thought they might somehow try to trace it. In all honesty, I don't know how pissed they still be about this being missing. I know that they banned the school from ever visiting again. You got a ban on the school.
I mean, how effective is that really to put a ban on the whole school? The child could go to a different school the next week and come back and steal more things or come back with their parents.
They escalated to a ban. I bet it didn't start out that way. In one of those assemblies, it came out, we're going to ban the school. Someone doesn't stand up.
Yep, not a single one of you children are allowed back in this place until you rat out your friends.
And then OP was like, damn it, I'm going to have to live with this for the next 30 years. So then somebody responded, they won't. I'm a museum curator and I get anonymous packages with donations to collections regularly. The key here to keep them from doing any digging is to just fess up. Tell them you were part of that class, that you wanted to give it back for years, etc. Mail it from out of town. Put the return address as the museum's own address or your elementary school. Doubtful any current curators were there when you took it. They'll just be trying to authenticate the relic, so you don't need to tell them how you got it. They will be grateful. You will be relieved. It will end there. Good luck.
See, that's what I think would happen. I mean, again, I think you could just bring it in yourself. I don't think they're going to call the police on you, but I'm just going off of faith in that. I think probably the safest thing, like this person said, is to just mail it somehow.
And you just put the museum address twice, they'll have to go back there somehow.
That is a good idea. I would still personally be anxious, like they can track it somehow from the UPS store.
It's not probably going to be that big of a deal to them.
Yeah, I also don't think it's that serious. I think, like this person said, if you kind of left a note in there and just explained this is what it is, so it came back from me.
I am John Doe.
Yes.
So there's an edit. So it says final edit. Just to let everyone know, thanks to your comments, I did the right thing and returned the figurine to the museum. I did it anonymously from a different city. I hope they receive it. I feel a lot better. Thank you. So it sounds like LP took that person's advice, even though I didn't really see them actually respond to that person. But
I like that ending. I think that's a good thing to do for everybody. The museum wants it back, obviously, and it seems like they're being cursed by this Egyptian relic with anxiety. So hopefully they feel better now.
hopefully, yeah. And then if it returns in your room, it's meant to be.
No, then that thing needs to be burned.
Or you got to return it back to the motherland.
Yeah, I would try that first, and then if it comes back, it goes to the incinerator.
And then if it comes back, then you must move away from your house.
You must leave the earth.
You must leave it wherever it is, and you must move away from it.
Yeah.
I think it could be a good movie, but I mean, you definitely would have to add some extra stuff. Well,
good story, Miss Anne. Thanks for sharing it with me. We had a good giggle.
It was a classic, a good confession. We like confessions every now and then. They're usually quite entertaining.
Yeah, that's probably my number 2 favorite after the classic.
Thank y'all for joining Chick Chat. We will see you next time. Remember to like, subscribe, share, click the link.
Share. Click the copy link.
Don't be surprised if you see us again.
Oh my god.
You will not be surprised.
And we'll see you next week, Chick Chat.
Goodbye, Chick Chat.
Good day.